Well, hello everybody. So we might make a start. On behalf of the Australasian College for Road Safety's local government network, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the September Showcase Webinar, where we're going to hear this afternoon from three councils about projects that they have been running, road safety projects they've been running. Warm welcome to those that are joining us for their first LGN event, and I extend that warm welcome to our regulars. It's great to see you online again. Hello, my name is Melanie Suter. I'm the chair of the local government network, and in my day job, I'm the road safety officer for Parks, Forbes and Lachlan Shire councils, and we're located right in the middle of New South Wales. Next slide, thanks. Thank you. So starting like we always do with a quick acknowledgement of country. So we acknowledge and pay our respects to the many First Nations of Australia who continue to be the sovereign custodians of their countries and the sovereignty of the Maori in New Zealand. We acknowledge the ongoing traditional custodians of the lands on which we live, work and learn, and pay our respects to elders who have passed on the legacy of knowledge and culture to the future generations. May the sharing of knowledge through Matauranga Maori and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ways of knowing, being and doing guide you with wisdom and courage as it enhances our collective futures. Next slide, please. So if this is your first LGN event, I just wanted to take a moment to explain, I guess, what we're all about. So we are all members of the Australasian College for Road Safety, and we really want to just focus on what's happening in the road safety space at the local government level. So a lot of our members actually work directly for local government, and we also have members that work for organisations that either work with local government in the road safety space or are interested in what local government's doing in that road safety space. So people like the state road authorities, consultants, local government associations, etc. The network meets monthly, so we have events each month. It's usually the second Wednesday of the month at this time. And it just allows all of those road safety practitioners across Australia and New Zealand to connect with each other, to share our stories like we're doing today, to collaborate on ideas and get help for issues that you might be experiencing. So we have this sort of a format. Sometimes we have a meeting where we break up into virtual breakout rooms so we can have a bit more of a deeper dive about road safety issues. And my personal favourite is the open mic sessions where members can ask for help with an issue that they might be experiencing, and the rest of the members can help with that. So thank you for joining us as members of the local government network. Next slide, please. So just a bit of housekeeping about what's going to happen today. So the webinar is going to run for around 60 minutes. It is being recorded and a link will be sent to you, everyone that's registered. We are taking questions and we will just hold those until the end of the webinar. Next slide, please. So to ask a question, if you're new to Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you can see there with a big arrow, there's a Q&A box. So that's where you would type your question. And I will do my very best to get through all of them and put them to the presenters at the end of the webinar. If I don't get to your question, the presenters are happy for us to share their email addresses, so please reach out to them after the webinar if you desperately want your question answered. If you've got more just general comments about what's going on and the topics that we're talking about, please use the chat for that. Thank you. Next slide. So thank you. Welcome to our presenters who are here today, who are giving up their time to present around their case study projects. So no, we heard a change in the lineup from Hastings Council. So we're heading over to New Zealand first, then jumping across to New South Wales, and then over to Western Australia. And I'll tell you a bit more about their projects as I introduce each of the speakers. But thank you for sharing your knowledge and time with us. Next slide, please. So first up, as I said, changing lineup from Hastings. Let me introduce you to Bruce Conahan from Hastings District Council over in New Zealand. And Bruce has got one of the other project team with him as well today to help answer questions. And I'll be talking about a safety around schools project. So Bruce, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm Bruce Conahan, the Transportation Policy and Planning Manager for Hastings District Council. And here, we've got Larry Blake, who was at the coalface of effectively the delivery of this particular project. So we'll just go through, we've basically got about a dozen slides here. So I'll make a start on those now. Thanks, Kate. So Heretaunga Arakura is Hastings Pathways to School. It's a community-led project aimed at road safety, emissions reduction, mode shift, and community health and wellbeing by increasing the uptake of active transport options for journeys to and from school. The focus of the program is to provide a safer and more pleasant environment on the streets in front of and on the way to local schools in order to reduce the risk of death and serious injury to school children. To assist, the New Zealand government had introduced Streets for People and Transport Choices funding, and Hastings District Council secured approximately $2.5 million to work with schools in Hastings itself, hence Heretaunga Arakura or Hastings Pathways to School, to work with schools to inspire mode shift, making our environment safer. So, thanks, Kate. Building better futures and stronger communities for all is a key element of it, and through that process, community development was used, and that's a process of working with people as they define their own goals, mobilise resources and develop action plans for addressing problems they have identified. The particular contribution of community development is that it encourages community ownership of both issue and solutions, and thereby builds confidence, capability, and a positive, sustainable change in road safety attitudes and behaviour at a community level. It provides the ability to target particular communities, so in this case it's school communities that may be difficult to access by more conventional means. The whole community can also be encouraged to support voluntary compliance with safety standards and rules. So it does provide a mechanism if we were looking at going through the schools to get messages across to parents, say use of seatbelts on the way. Next slide, Kate, thanks. Fundamental to Heretaunga Arakura, as is the case with any community development project, developing closer relationships with the schools is crucial for its success. Through the processes, we're aware of that principals and teachers have a very high workload, and what we want to try and do is avoid creating additional work for them and trying to ensure that they can get benefits where possible. So part of the approach around it is we worked with student leaders groups to develop a program for each school, and that in itself helps develop student leadership skills. We provided communications material for the schools to circulate on their platforms to distribute within their community. So that would have been letters, newsletters through to parents and the like. We used the student leaders to enter travel mode info for the school population into a GIS system. So that formed part of a data entry exercise for the students. The follow-up survey provided a second lot of data, so that provided information for a statistical exercise. And then in addition we also provided an artist to work with student leaders groups to develop artwork for the school frontage areas reflecting the school values, aspirations and whakapapa. So I think that is a key thing, is giving a sense of ownership to that particular school, a sense of identity. Thanks. Next slide. Thanks, Kate. So the key element is ensuring all children have access to safe and healthy school journeys. Challenge here is how do we increase the health and wellbeing of our community? Part of that is by making more people friendly streets, getting them involved. So that was with the surveying, the help with the design. So it was pulling them right in from basically start to finish on that. And then from our side is addressing the perceptions of safety outside the school gate. And that's where we come to the fore with basically the physical measures, but again, working with the schools on those. Thanks, Kate. So through that process, as we're looking at co-designing more equitable, greener and livable communities, and I think with it is, from the greener side, is probably less vehicles around the schools that don't need to be there. Other opportunities, as you can see there, is basically some planters that would have been worked on by the school kids. So you can see pretty much one of our schools before and after, is there is a marked difference from what was basically an open road compared to effectively narrowing it down, measures to raise awareness at the key crossing point. Next slide, Kate. fundamental to this, and this is where the true aspect of community development comes to the fore, is basically placing children at the heart of the urban street design and part of the overall process. As I said, they were involved with the GIS travel mode mapping to identify existing travel behaviours. That was both and before after the project. We went out, or Larry went out and walked some of the common routes with the students to identify barriers that council can remove or repair. And that could be simple things as basically a dangerous dog, so to speak. So people are actually diverted away from that. It's interesting that kids see some very interesting things. So over here, from my experiences, they knew where all the tinny houses were, those that were selling cannabis. Sort of invaluable information for the police as well. They worked with the co-design on the traffic calming and frontage enhancements outside the school, including the artwork. So again, it was really hands-on for the children. We were able to work with them to use GIS travel mode data to inform road crossing and intersection improvements on the wider network. So through that process, as they were able to tell us basically where they had particular concerns, whether real or otherwise. And we also supported them in providing road safety, cycle and scooter skills instruction for the students. And as I said, as with the statistics, they were also involved in basically the evaluation process. Thanks, Kate. So I think through here is probably just a quick summary of the success that we had seen around it with Mayfair School, Irongate School, Kimiora Community School, and Hastings Central School. As you can see from there, as we had traffic volumes went down, we had vehicle speeds go down. In terms of some of the survey information, 60% of survey respondents agreed pedestrian safety had increased. 89% of the students said they felt safer due to the changes they had noticed. I think in looking at the vehicles per hour changes, it ranged there from 29% up to 51%. It gives a reflection of how much non-school related traffic was actually going past some of these schools. So that is a marked improvement on that side. In terms of the speed limit changes, or speeds measured, is from 23% to 65%. And I think what that did reinforce is we had the highest percentage reductions where we actually had the physical measures in there. So those physical measures are fundamental to identifying a crossing location, but also achieving that speed reduction. Next slide, thanks, Kate. So I think as with this is from Irongate School as a principal there, you can see the vision for us is liberation of our kids in whānau to be able to access learning out in the community, that transport's no barrier, and that any child can reach any part of their learning. So that built in basically the accessibility, but also the leadership that was being developed within the school. Next slide. So I think for those that are familiar with community development will basically be familiar with this sort of philosophy from Lao Tzu, Chinese. I think he was a founder of Taoism many years ago. But his quote points to a critical characteristic about community development and leadership. People are most likely to buy in when they have been actively involved in the creative process. And I think that's the key thing when we are working with communities, is they effectively have to take ownership of basically that problem. We may need to look at giving them the skills around it, so encouraging to be involved, giving them the skills, empowering them. And at the end of it is basically that empowerment means they end up taking charge. And I think that saying there from Lao Tzu covers off that really nicely. And that's, to me, is probably the measure of success as well. Next slide, thanks, Kate. So I think through here is just some of the photos that have been taken. The one on the left is actually a model of one of the school locations. You can see the kids around it at that particular school. So again, as it shows the kids being involved in it. The middle photo is basically one of the planters that was done and shows the artwork on there. Here you can see is the plants that went in were actually put in by the kids of the school. And then the photo on the right is basically flax flowers that had been made and presented to our contractor for the works that have been involved. So again, it's the big thank you that's coming back as to how the kids respect what was done. In that particular case, it was a child with a mobility impairment, and some modifications were actually made on site to accommodate that person. And I think that, to me, is basically what it's all about, is having that a strong working relationship. Next page, thanks. Next slide, thanks, Kate. So through here is the photo on the left is basically one of the finished sites. You can see effectively the artwork on the boxes, the temporary boxes that went in, the works that went around to enhance the crossing itself. You can see the narrowing with the curb extension. So again, as we've got a marked change around the environment, there's a lot of indicators to indicate that there's something different there. The photo on the right, this is actually a very busy site. It was effectively, you can see that we've put in basically separators between the cycle lane and the traffic lane. So as we've narrowed up that crossing point, this crossing is a lot more visible compared to how it used to be. It makes for a shorter crossing distance. So if we have a shorter crossing distance, we have less risk in terms of the time of exposure. So I think these are sort of some of the outcomes that we've had, and again, as it reinforces the need for a close working relationship, that community development approach to achieve really good outcomes there that are well supported by the students and the teachers and the principals at the school. So, and last slide, thanks, Kate. So I think at the end of it, as that sort of summarises it, but at the end of the webinar, today's webinar, I'm more than happy to answer any queries that arise. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bruce. And Kate will pop your email address into the chat if anybody wants to chase you up afterwards, if we don't get to all those questions. I can see that a couple have popped up, which is great. So if you do have a question that you want to ask Bruce and the team, yeah, please pop that in the Q&A. All right, moving on to our second speaker. I'd like to introduce you to Andrea Hamilton-Vaughan, who's the Road Safety Officer for Orange City and Cabonne Shire Councils in New South Wales. And Andrea is going to be talking to you about the Power Nap project. So Andrea, all over to you. I think you're on mute.
There you go. You had me muted, Mel. Never mind. This campaign, Power Nap, identified the driver fatigue issues across the national heavy vehicle fleet. I implemented 4 key strategies to address the issue, and I will share with you the results and the outcomes which are ongoing. Next slide, please. A Power Nap is a behavioural change campaign, a call to action to target driver fatigue in the fleet. Driver fatigue is the primary cause of heavy vehicle fatal crashes in Australia. We developed 4 components to empower heavy vehicle drivers to maximise the quality of a driver's rest breaks. A power nap is a short sleep that terminates before deep sleep, that's 15 to 20 minutes. It's intended to improve situation awareness and concentration. The Power Nap campaign and National Driver Fatigue Week has won a number of awards across Australian trucking organisations, and its social media campaign in its first year gained over 9 million views. Next, please. So we know that driver fatigue is one of the 3 fatal crash types in Australia. The NTI, which is the largest insurer of the fleet, revealed that all the fatal fatigue crashes in their portfolio were heavy vehicle logbook compliant. Here in Australia, we have the National Heavy Vehicle legislation. It's not in Western Australia, but the rest of the states. Truck drivers were dying tired. They were often spending up to 17, 18 hours awake with their vehicle, and the majority of crashes were occurring on their way to a destination. Next, please. So in New South Wales alone, for 5 years, there were nearly 6,500 heavy vehicle truck crashes. Next, please. 8.1% were identified as fatigue, but if you look at the data, 21.4% were single vehicle crashes, and many of those are put down to driver distraction. I put to you that driver distraction is the forerunner for driver fatigue. And at a roundtable at the National Road Transport Industry in Canberra on Friday, many of the nation's largest trucking companies agreed with that, my assumption that that is a forerunner to driver fatigue. Next slide, please. It was clear that from the driver fatigue data across the fleet, a quantitative and discussions with drivers, additional support was required. We needed an intervention strategy to address driver behaviour at the point of action. So an intervention strategy is a set of actions that can be inserted into the chain of events that prevent consequences of behaviour or inaction. So what we needed to do to deliver this campaign was remove the roadblocks and get to the drivers. We understood from conversations that the trucking companies were, it was a bit like faulty towers, don't mention the wall. You can look that up and find out what that means, but it was quite comical, but no one wanted to talk about driver fatigue. So how could it possibly work? And how could we identify the lack of understanding and a clear line of the last line of defence and address that to the fleet? We need to do it in simple steps with a step-by-step guide. Next slide, please. So we use target engagement. Truck drivers love their social media. They congregate there in the tens of thousands while they're using their social media, while they're loading trucks, getting unloaded, rest breaks, whatever. It's a connectivity with the world when they're off on these long trips. So social media became our digital platform to launch this message and retraining of the power nap, which is a short sleep. You can see on the Orange and Cabonne Road Safety page that we do a numerous number of social media posts, all slightly different, with different emphasis on different parts of the message. And there's a reason for that. We also supplied takeaway coffee cups, because what do truck drivers love more than social media? Coffee at roadhouses. So we provided those, and they had, as you'll see in the slides, information about power nap and how to take a power nap, and a QR code to go back to the website. The next one, please, Kate. And final messaging on the back of trucks. This was very important from a psychology point of view. If you want to change behaviour, you need to target people where they're doing an action that you want to change, obviously on the back of trucks. We had only 20 trucks across Australia, which was nowhere near enough, but those QR codes on the back showed us from our website that thousands of drivers were, and people, other drivers, were downloading the QR code and looking at the website. Next, please. So apart from social media and cups and messaging on the back of the truck, the truckies of all people, God bless them, reached out and said, look, we love your social media. We'd like to share it on our Facebook page. So we developed resources that they could freely use in their workplaces and in their social media. So here we have a step-by-step guide to taking a power nap. We do have a special social media post for that. And believe it or not, it's the least favourite of our social media posts, because one, it doesn't have a talking head. Facebook will tell you all the time that if you want to succeed in social media, you need a talking head, not just a standard picture. Next, please, Kate. So sitting at 5 o'clock one morning in my lounge room before I was heading off to the gym, I thought, what do I want to say to the National Heavy Vehicle Fleet? Because this campaign just seems to keep going. We've been out of funding for about 18 months, but we keep going. And what I wanted to say that morning to about 400 truck drivers that regularly followed me, how will you manage your driver fatigue today? And it was gold. The TAC, one of Australia's premier road safety agencies, loved it so much they started sharing it all over the place. So how will you manage your driver fatigue today is in poster form, email signatures, and you can get it in trucks or cars, because even in a trucking organisation, not everyone drives a truck. Next, please, Kate. We also wanted to find out how much people knew about driver fatigue, and 7,500 people responded to a questionnaire on our website, and the results were frightening. Actually, over 60 to 70% of people couldn't answer 8 of the stupidest, simplest questions about driver fatigue. And that was an eye-opener. It was also interesting that our last line of defence, which was criticised by some people, which was if you're struggling to keep your eyes open, you know, you're in danger of falling into a microsleep. The time is now to pull over and have a power nap. The TAC and Monash University Accident Research Centre just did a lot of new driver fatigue research. 1 in 5 Victorians admits to driving while they're fighting to keep their eyes open. So we were right on the ball. Next, thanks, Kate. So how do we keep driver fatigue as an important community issue? We developed National Driver Fatigue Week because I don't believe, and there's a lot of experts now who are probably agreed with me beforehand, but are coming out and saying it. These 3 to 6 months campaigns and then forget about it, thinking the issue's solved, don't have a long-lasting impact. So we developed National Driver Fatigue Week with a free toolkit that businesses can download the free content for all and use them in the simplest way without costing a lot of money. Next, please. And it keeps the power nap, more importantly, it keeps the power nap message alive. So there's free posters, email signatures. You can use any of our social media posts, step-by-step guide to taking a power nap, pull-up blinds, and free artwork for heavy vehicles. Now, at that meeting in Canberra, some of the biggest trucking companies have just come on board to put that on the back of their trucks. As you can see, there's a range there. Next. You can't do a national campaign without help. And I'm a team of one, but I was very lucky that the Assistant Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, Assistant Minister Carol Brown, came on board, and she put out a media release to all her parliamentary colleagues and to the nation about National Driver Fatigue Week and Power Nap, and coupled that with the National Action Plan. They didn't give me any money, but that support really opened up a lot of doors. The lady on the left, who I first met at a conference, who was the Shadow Minister, is now the Minister for Transport and Regional Roads, but I think it's actually the other way around, Jenny Atkinson, and they've been great supporters. Jenny constantly likes my social media posts and reposts them, which is really important. And this is why the campaign has stayed alive, not just because of Jenny, but there's about 60 or 70 truck drivers and identities out there who have followings of 60, 80 and 100,000 who are sharing our message. So the lowly little road safety officer in Orange, which is totally irrelevant to the whole process in a way, is getting help from these people, and that is driving that message straight out there. Next, please. Also, Bernard Carlin, who's our chief of the Centre of Road Safety in New South Wales, He is an avid PowerNap user. He endorses the whole project, though the Transport for New South Wales have another strategy they have in place, which is great. And Paul Toole, who was the former Deputy Premier of New South Wales, he was the first person to come on board from a political background and show that message, shared that message and content through a whole different audience, which was really important to build the capacity. It's incredible the capacity this campaign has developed, but it's about those associations and those other people who have made it what it is today. Next, please. So National Driver Fatigue Week for 2025 is 21 to 27 of February. And I'm asking you all to join us and participate. It may be something as simple as an email signature on your emails, on your invoices, whatever. And there's social media content. We've also partnered with the University of Newcastle to evaluate from a scientific point of view the tens of thousands of truck drivers who are now taking power naps. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So we will, oh, thank you. You've already done it, Kate. Kate's popped Andrea's email address into the chat if you want to chase her up. But yeah, if you do have a question about that project or fatigue, please pop it in the Q&A and we'll do that after this final presentation. So last but definitely not least is Michael Lears, the Director of Works and Services at, from the Shire of Manjimup in Western Australia. And Michael's going to be talking to us about their road safety strategy. So, Michael, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Nidhi. First off, Kaya, and good afternoon. I'm speaking today from the lands of the Noongar Nation and wish to acknowledge the Noongar people as the traditional custodians and to pay respect to their elders, past and present, and to celebrate their strength and resilience and their continuous connection to country, while also acknowledging their living culture as one of the oldest in human history. So the Shire of Manjimup's in the southwest of Western Australia, some 300 kilometres south of Perth, about an hour and a half inland from Margaret River. Most people seem to know where Margaret River is. Interestingly, data shows us that the majority of KSIs are from single occupant run-off road crashes and are usually locals. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. I'll just let it pause there for a bit, Kate. Okay, next slide, please. So the Shire's road safety journey really stepped up when we were approached by the West Australian Local Government Association to participate in a trial or demonstration project of local governments being certified under the International Standards for Road Traffic Safety Management Systems, ISO 39001. I assume we all have some awareness of this standard. There are 6 stages that need to be implemented and then measured and improved upon in order to gain certification under this standard. Certification is a continuous improvement process, and this is evidenced by the need to demonstrate the organisation's ability to measure and then improve or increase defined road safety actions. The Shire's completed the first 2 stages and is working through the 3rd stage. If we could go to the next slide, please, Kate. The process requires a number of objectives to be met, and as noted already, it's a live and continuous management system. So it's a whole of organisation, whole of network system that's not just about roads or vehicles, but how we manage all of the components within our influence that are involved with driving from place to place. Next slide, please. So the first step is to take note of where you are in relation to road safety or your road safety journey. Get some data and determine the Shire's involvement in all aspects of road safety. This is in particular including perceptions of knowledge of those involved. So via a survey, it's about working out who thinks who is responsible for road safety. Typically in local government, it's usually the works department or the roads crew. But that's not all. It extends beyond that. Next slide, please. So in determining our involvement in all aspects of road safety, we need to look at things like the functions of local government, so policies and legislations that may affect road safety. When we start to look at the works crew or the infrastructure directorate, look at their programs and procedures, how that affects road safety. The town planner and urban designer, they're responsible for new subdivisions, new roads, car parks, that type of thing. So we need to be able to review their policies and procedures. Similarly, fleet managers, we need to be able to determine how fleet as well as drivers are managed. And finally, community development. They're typically the department that engages directly with the community over road safety. So they have a really big and powerful, important part in communicating with the community. Next slide, please. The second step was to ensure the organisation's leadership was committed to improving road safety. This required formal acknowledgement and approval by council of the organisation's journey towards certification, as well as the creation and implementation of a road traffic safety policy. Since its approval, this policy, the road traffic safety policy, has affected much of the Shire's work with road safety. I'll talk a bit more about that later. Next slide, please. So the Safe System philosophy brings a public health focus to road safety. And as suggested before, it involves all aspects of the road system working together to eliminate death and serious injury. Next slide, please. So this system is considered to be world best practice and is guided by 4 principles. Fallibility. We all make mistakes. There's data that suggests that only 30% of crashes are as a result of bad or reckless driving behaviour. So the inverse of that is 70% are just simple, well, not quite so simple, but mistakes. Whether that's fatigue, inattention, or any of the other type of mistakes that we make while we're driving. Vulnerability. When we hit things, it hurts. So therefore, we need to consider the limits of the human body. Next slide, please. There's a shared responsibility. We're all responsible in some way for not only our own, but others' safety on the road. So as road managers, we need to play a really large role in building and designing safe roads. And as I've said before, it's a systems approach. So it's a whole of network, whole of system approach, which means when one part of that system fails, there's others that will absorb or protect us, the driver. Next slide, please. Since approval, the Shire's road traffic safety policy has influenced not only on-ground works, it's also influenced the vehicle safety components such as GPS, which monitors speed and location, and other data, which has been fitted to a number of our vehicles. But it's also influenced the review and standards used in the Shire's road hierarchy policy. Next slide, please. I'll talk a bit more about that road hierarchy policy later. Application of the road traffic safety policy guides when and how we carry out our actions. So where possible, we need to consider separation of all road traffic, so cars, bicycles and pedestrians, and separate them whether they're on the roads, roadsides, footpaths and intersections. We need to target lower speed limits on our roads and streets where there's a mixed use, where separation of these of these traffic types can't be met. We need to provide crash protective roadsides to address runoff road collisions. These types of things include sealed and widened shoulders, barriers, audible edge line, removal of hazards where possible, and improved lighting. We need to ensure safe speeds at intersections, and this will reduce side-on collisions. Install roundabouts where applicable, and also reduce travel speeds. Safe journey planning, including consideration of the need to travel, also the amount and how we travel. Vehicle purchasing policy should include vehicle checks and a process to remove or update unfit vehicles. data collection on fleet drivers and incidences. Post-crash response and first aid, emergency preparedness, and post-crash recovery and rehabilitation. So we need to ensure that we have an emergency response and first aid training being available to the organisation staff. All or any of these applications are not always suitable to small country towns or regional roads, and as such, we must apply where we can interventions from the Safe Road System Handbook. Sorry, it got me at the next slide, which is great, thank you. So I'll talk a bit more about our road hierarchy policy. So this was a natural progression of the Shire's road traffic safety policy, was the review of our road hierarchy policy, and that specifies our minimum standards for road maintenance and construction. So the policy now includes edge line marking and centre line marking on all our new construction or renewal projects for distributor roads. It also includes minimum seal widths and shoulder widths, inclusion of barriers where possible, and separation of traffic for our CBD urban upgrade projects. Next slide, please. Stepping aside from that, but continuing with our road traffic safety journey, the Shire's been involved in a centreline marking trial. So since 2021, the Shire's had in its forward capital works plan a budgetary allocation every 2 to 3 years for line marking. This allows the Shire to line mark low volume roads that otherwise would meet our main roads WA standards, but are not eligible for line marking due to the low traffic volume. So by us funding it ourselves, we can progressively upgrade the Shire's road network. We've just completed over 10-kilometre centreline marking on 2 low-volume distributor roads, and these roads have a default speed limit, state default speed limit of 110 kilometres, and also have heavy haulage on the road. The project's been met with general approval. Next slide, please. So we expect to continue this program with other distributor roads in the near future, and again, we believe these are getting met with approval. I'll hand it over to question time. Thank you, Kate.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Michael. So Kate will pop your email address into the chat so anyone can chase you up afterwards. There are a couple of questions that are sitting in the Q&A. This is your opportunity, if you've got a question for the presenters, to pop it into the Q&A now so I can have a look at it. So the first question was, are we recording today, and will it go up onto the YouTube for the college? Yes. So it is recording, yes. Everybody will receive a link to that recording once it goes up onto YouTube. So yes, you will be able to look at it, even those that registered and didn't turn up today. So I'm going to kick off the first question before I get to the ones in the Q&A box. And I'm just going to ask each of you, because I think this is a big thing about the LGN. It's about that transferability to other councils. So we might go in speaking order. So Bruce, we'll go to you guys first. About what would your tips be to the other local government practitioners on the line today about, I guess, replicating your project in their patch of the world?
I think from our side of things is just probably having a good understanding of some of the principles of community development. Personal perspective is I've probably been fortunate that I've had a number of roles where I have had to work with the community as a traffic engineer, working through road safety coordinators, but by the same token as the engineer is there to provide that sort of engineering advice. Working together with the communities is fundamental. Definitely encouraging them to be involved, definitely empowering them, so make sure they've got the skills around it. And as with Lal Zoo there, is effectively the outcome around it is that basically they take ownership to solve their problems. All too often, as people say, it's your problem. The reality is road safety is everybody's problem, is how do we work together to solve that problem? And that would be my sort of thoughts around it. It's just having that open-mindedness.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So same question to you, Andrea. What would your tips be to councils that might want to pick up or run a program similar to yours in their patch of the world?
My advice would be to do the research on the road safety issue, whether it's driver fatigue or speed, whatever. Do the research, and from Monash, CARS, George Institute, stick to the theoretical frameworks, because you will get blowback in a lot of cases. But if you've got your science right, the framework right, you can make a difference and get outcomes and get results. That's what you want. It's no use just handing out pieces of paper anymore. We want results to get to 0 fatalities.
Great. And Michael, I guess same question to you. Yeah, what are the tips for embedding road safety across council? And I think you're on mute by the look of, yep.
Sorry. It really comes about conversation with council. I think start off informally with your senior management, and with your councillors, Shire President or Mayor if you can, and then get them to understand the steps that we need to take in road safety. And it doesn't mean we need to start building roads to some kind of international standard or to some bigger standard. It can be small and quite simple improvements, the road safety journey, just through signage, communication, as we've heard with the other speakers, the power net, and through to the other extreme, which is quietening the road, if you like, by reducing the large travel area for people, that allows them to be able to speed up and go fast without paying attention to the other users. And once we get that informally, then get it through formally, and then we can start to put these things through in budgetary measures, and that way we can get an improvement.
Great, thanks. Bruce, next one's for you guys over in New Zealand. So in New South Wales and Victoria, the Department of Planning and Education pretty much determines schools' locations, their access, the limited infrastructure that's there to support the school, which leaves local government with significant challenges in improving road safety around schools. So how do we get the message across to the state government about improving new school outcomes?
It's probably a good question, and I think certainly circumstances in Australia will be different from New Zealand here. I think with New Zealanders, we are probably fortunate that we have regulation, I guess, with our district plans that certainly set criteria around it. So the Ministry of Education has to go through a zoning process for land. Linked into that is we can then stipulate conditions that go around it. I think a lot of it really comes back to sort of some of the good practices and having some sort of common sense thinking around things, is trying to minimise the interaction. So if we're starting to look at a new school that's going in, is where are the points of interaction? What is the level of risk associated with it? And then reiterating those messages back to effectively the Department of Planning and Department of Education around it. So trying to start thinking more about their customers, so to speak. It's not just a fancy new school and the like. Is the last thing they need is probably newspaper articles, so to speak, coming in and saying about, we've got a nice new school, but we've got all this lack of safety around it. So I think as working with them is going through that particular process, is trying to design some things out. It's like teachers arriving, for instance. Do they really need to go through an area where there's a whole lot of school kids? They can be separated out. And I think years ago, there's the old New South Wales RTA actually had some really good guidelines in terms of school design. I don't know whether they're still floating around, but they were actually really good. And it's starting to think about, as I said, with those interactions, is how can we design out a lot of that risk there. So again, it's safety by design. And that would be my thinking on that side. May not necessarily cover what Adam was after, but it's sort of having to think around those lines anyway.
Sure, thanks, Bruce. Michael, question for you. So what power does the Shire have to reduce speed limits where the state default is clearly excessive for the conditions?
Yeah, it's hard. In Western Australia, I won't mince around. So we have, so it's the state road authority. So over here, it's Main Roads Western Australia, Vic Roads would be in Victoria. I'm not sure what it is in the other localities. Getting back to it, we have a local government association here that also provides road safety officers or roadwise officers. So I work with our roadwise officer, and she helps me with communicating, getting data, getting local data, getting state data that helps firm up our application to main roads to get speed limits reduced. If I can, I just wanted to take a moment to talk on Bruce's presentation too, because we did something very similar at the front of one of our senior high schools, and where we also have a rec centre, an aqua centre. There used to be, it was only curved on one side. It was about 10 or 11 metres of seal, no curb and table or open drain on the other side of the road. Buses parking there, lots of vehicles coming, dropping kids off, clearly a hazardous area. We reduced the width of that road, curved it to, I think it was 6 metres, and we put a splitter aisle in the middle to allow for, as a pedestrian refuge. What was interesting is this clearly had the effect that we wanted, which was to slow traffic right down, get people almost to a crawling space. And the feedback I was getting when I attend council meetings was the work we had done was terrible because it slowed everyone down. And so I'll go back to now. I'll wrap that up. Going back to my presentation, is it needs to be a multi-pronged approach. So we need to be working with our community development or community services area to communicate the improvements that we're doing and why we're doing them. We need to have a whole bunch of other systems in place to help get that message across.
Michael, leave your microphone on, because the next question that just popped up is for you too. So has your Shire considered the Vision Zero targets in their policy and how they might contribute towards reaching our nationally adopted 2030 and 2050 targets?
Look, I guess that's implied, but it hasn't specifically. And really good point. Thank you, Brett. When that policy is reviewed next, I'll make sure that's in there.
Can I ask a follow-up question then? What are the KPIs that are in it, in the policy? Because we did have quite a big chat about this at one of our last meetings about what our road safety KPIs should be.
Yeah, we don't have KPIs as such, and the policy is available on the Shire's website. So if you go Shire of Manjimup website, I'll have a quick squiz for it now. Shire of Manjimup website, documents, policies. There'll be something under technical services, and we have road traffic safety policy. There are objectives and some policy measures, which I discuss in my presentation. So it falls short of KPIs, which is what we really wanted to do at this stage. We just wanted to get this policy introduced to council and the community.
Cool. Now I can see that Maureen's got a hand up. Maureen, do you have a question that you want to ask, and Kate can unmute you? No.
Maureen needs to unmute, stop her mute.
Sorry, if it's me, I'm having troubles. Apologies, everybody.
You're all good. You've got the floor. Go.
No, I didn't have a question. I'm loving the notion of the community development and the support. And my apologies, I was just trying to fix my volume. So I'm going back to listening. But I love that community development. Kids and Traffic so supports it. Thank you.
No worries. Love it. I don't know. Have I got to all those questions? I'm just having a look. I guess maybe in the last couple of minutes that we've got, any last words from the presenters? Let's go in speaking order again. Bruce, any last words from you? Tips, tricks, thoughts?
Not offhand. Larry, your thoughts on Arakura?
Yeah, no, I think what we've done, one of the byproducts, I guess, of our project has been the relationship that we've managed to secure with the schools. and that's still paying dividends. They're very strong partners for a lot of the work we do now, and a really good, strong support for us into the wider community for different initiatives and that style of thing. So that's one of the unforeseen outcomes, if you like, but something we're still reaping the rewards of.
Great. Andrea, same thing. Any last words?
I'd just like to say driver fatigue. Brett asked a question about our 230 and 250 targets. Unless we get driver fatigue under control, we're not going to meet those targets, because it's the one area that we need to engage the public in education as our only tool.
Awesome. Michael, last words.
Thanks, Mel. Yeah, don't give up, particularly when you're trying to get speeds reduced through your state body. Just keep trying and get data. Data is really valuable, and I think that goes on to what Andrea was saying as well. We need to get people to understand that it's not the dangerous drivers that causes the most risk. It's not the speeding. It's the very simple mistakes that we all make, and clearly the largest percentage of those simple mistakes is most likely fatigue.
Great. Well, I'm going to give you some time back in your day, everybody. We're going to finish early because we haven't got any more questions to get to. So thank you to our presenters and to those that helped us to find our presenters. That's great. And if you are listening and thinking, I've got a great idea, I've got a great project that I'd love to share, please reach out to us because we would love to share your case study with the rest of the LGN network as well. Our next LGN event is actually the pre-conference workshop, if any of you are heading to Hobart for the conference. And then we will have we'll be back on track for November on the second Wednesday. So thank you, everybody. I'll give you 2 minutes back in your day. Thanks for sharing the afternoon with us. Cheers. And I'll see you in Hobart if you're going to be there.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.